So there is a great answer, and my question is like, is this going to work for you? Let me know. But when I wanted to do data mining about public opinion, I go to newspapers, especially historic ones where I can see the whole scale of things. We did this recently in a class where we were looking for a massacre where the army went out and killed a bunch of Native American people. We were trying to find evidence of that. So how would you find evidence of schizophrenia in black populations being declared by the media and read about a lot? Well, let me show you. If you go to the databases, you can go by type, and one of those types is newspapers. Since, before the pandemic, people have been digitizing old microfilm and old papers, and we're starting to build a really rich collection of papers that you can go through and search throughout the whole scope and see what times things were being talked about. I would say my favorites are not the locals like Deseret News, Salt Lake Tribune, but the national recognized papers. So we have LA Sentinel, LA Times that goes back to 1881, New York Times. We have these that I wanted to show you. Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, Baltimore African American are all three newspapers that exist in large cities that had white newspapers. And these were created specifically, you can see it goes back to like the turn of the previous century. These were created specifically by African American editors, business owners, journalists for African American audiences. So these are really good too. Let me start out with a national newspaper and then we'll look at the Chicago Defender. And I made this video before and the database wasn't working, so hopefully it'll work better. So I want advanced search. How does the population self-identify? How are they identified? And again, we have to use atavistic terms. Let's see, let's do a star. So it'll get singular, plural, and then we have schizophrenia. One thing to be concerned about is that schizophrenia is sometimes used as a rhetorical device for people who can't make up their mind. It has nothing to do with the psychological analysis. So here we have science notes, that's a tests, but here we have one that's that rhetorical device. You might have to sift through those. Cultural schizophrenia. But here's the thing that I wanted to show you. Uh-oh, it's happening again. The little thing is spinning. Oh no, something's wrong. Come on, ProQuest. Yes, okay. The date, here you go, 1925. Schizophrenia probably came out of psychology, so it existed before then, but it wasn't called that. Are there other names for schizophrenia that you want to put in? Each of these represents a decade. So we can go to 50s to the 70s. And when you click update, it'll give you a better, what do they call it? A histogram. We'll see a histogram of when and how often this was talked about. So you could, this is a data mining digital humanities sort of a treatment. This is quantifiable evidence of a topic being talked about, depending on your variables like how the keywords were used and things like that. So you can see there's a rise in it. But you'll have to look. The Labour Party, that's like in England. But here's one. White racism said to push blacks to the brink. So you may have to go through and narrow these down. Let's try another, so, try different keywords and things like that as you go. Let's go back and look at the Chicago Defender with the same search. Let me go, ProQuest. There we go. Chicago Defender. So this one goes 1910, 1975. Chicago, big city. Not racist. I don't want to be like overarching declarations, but there's evidence of racism in Chicago's past. I don't want to say they have a racist past because that's like everybody. There's only 20. What does that mean for us? This is something where you would interpret this. Is schizophrenia being talked about in a different way? Is it being ignored? Is it being suppressed? This is where you would get to take your scholarship and look at the popular record. So think about the audience. LA Times might have a Hispanic as well as white audience, maybe some African American. They were part of the Great Migration out of the South, post-Civil War. People went to California. But these are some places that I would go. Another one, I can't remember if I did this one before, but if you go to Google Ngrams, this is all the books, but you can search in a histogram. So if we search for schizophrenia, you can see that timeline in books pretty much follows a similar line that it did in that histogram that we looked at. Is that counteract your claim, or does it support your claim, or is it just a variable that is to be considered? So these are places that I would dig around in. Try multiple newspapers, try different keywords, and see how it goes. And I'm still here to help you. So talk to you soon.